I had just clocked out of work at 11 p.m. Exhausted but relieved, the shift was finally over. My drive home usually took around 45 minutes, a long stretch out of the city and into the quiet outskirts where I lived. Honestly, I always liked that drive. Once the city lights faded behind me and the roads emptied, it felt peaceful, almost therapeutic after a long day. I was about 20 minutes from home when I turned onto the long, isolated side road that led straight to my house. I'd been using this road for years, and nothing strange had ever happened on it, but I won't lie. It was creepy at night. Only a few dim streetlights, and on both sides, a thick wall of forest that always felt like it was watching you. And because the nights got foggy around this time of year, visibility would shrink until I could barely see more than a few feet ahead. I was easing through the fog when something faint caught my attention, a small blinking light somewhere up ahead. It was too hazy to tell how far or what side of the road it was on. I slowed down. As I got closer, the blinking suddenly stopped, the light vanishing completely. My car was barely moving at 15 or 20 miles per hour when a small vehicle suddenly rolled out of the fog directly in front of me. I hit the brakes, but it was too late. My bumper lightly tapped the back of theirs. It wasn't a hard impact, but the suddenness of it left me stunned. I stepped out of my car, expecting the driver to do the same. I could see movement inside their vehicle shifting, but the headlights were off, and the vehicle looked old, worn, almost abandoned. Finally, a man stepped out, a large, middle-aged guy. He walked toward me slowly, his movements deliberate, like he was thinking too hard about every step. When I asked if everything was okay, he didn't look at me, just kept glancing around at the trees, the road, everywhere except my face. After a moment, he muttered, "Yeah, sorry." Something about him felt wrong. I suddenly felt very aware of how empty the road was, how isolated, how no one would hear anything out here. I told him the cars didn't seem damaged and that I was going to head home, but he snapped back, telling me to wait so he could check his vehicle. He walked to the back bumper, then continued wandering around the entire car, pretending to inspect places I hadn't even touched. It was bizarre. It felt planned. As he circled toward the passenger side, something caught my eye, shadow lifting up from the back seat. A second man, a large figure, rose and moved toward the door. My heartbeat spiked. Instinct kicked in. I jumped back into my car and locked the doors just as the back door of their vehicle opened. Both men rushed toward me, waving their arms, yelling for me to stop, voices muffled by the fog and the pounding in my ears. I didn't wait. I slammed the car into drive and shot around them, the road twisting beneath my wheels as I sped through the fog. In my rearview mirror, I saw their headlights flick on. They followed for maybe 30 seconds. Then the lights faded into the mist. I didn't go straight home. I pulled into a gas station about 5 minutes away and waited. 10 minutes passed, then 15. No sign of them. I drove home, locked every door, and sat awake thinking about what had just happened. I didn't call the police. At the time, I wasn't sure if I was overreacting or if there even was anything they could do. But as the hours passed, the truth settled in darker and heavier. Those men weren't checking for damage. They weren't confused or startled. They were waiting, and I had pulled into their trap perfectly. Sometimes I wonder if I hadn't noticed that movement in the back seat, if I had stood there a few seconds more with her, I'd ever have made it home at all. And what terrifies me most is the possibility that they didn't stop because they gave up, but because they went looking for someone else. I used to work for a small trucking company, hauling frozen products across multiple states. Most nights were routine 3 or 4 deliveries, back to the warehouse, then home. But every now and then, I'd get stuck with a long route, the kind that left me too far from home to return the same night. On those trips, I'd pull into whatever truck stop I could find, rest a few hours, and head back before dawn. This particular night, I was on one of those long hauls. I'd finished my last delivery, reloaded the empty trailer, and started the long drive toward home. By the time everything was done, it was creeping past 1 a.m. I knew I'd need to rest. Soon fatigue and heavy rigs don't mix well. The nearest truck stop was still 40 miles out, so I kept rolling down the straight, silent highway. I tend to zone out on these stretches long black roads, No cars, no lights, except the glow of my dashboard. That quiet was almost comforting, until something flickered in my side mirror. Headlights. But I couldn't see the car itself, just a soft glow, hugging the back of my trailer. That meant only one thing. Whoever was behind me was sitting deep in my blind spot, close enough to disappear, close enough that if I hit my brakes, they'd slide right under my bumper. I assumed he'd pass eventually. Most cars do, but he didn't. He stayed glued to the back of my rig, mile after mile. It crawled under my skin, but I forced myself to stay calm. The truck stop was only a few minutes ahead. I just needed to get there, park, and maybe the driver would move on. Finally, the exit appeared. I slowed down, signaled, and began turning into the rest area. The headlights behind me dimmed for a moment, then followed, still right on me. I pulled into an empty slot between two unoccupied semis, shifted into park, but the car behind me didn't stop at the entrance. It rolled in slowly, then crept closer, closer, until it stopped just a few feet from the back of my trailer, close enough that my mirrors couldn't see the hood. That was the moment my stomach dropped. I stepped out of my cab, planning to walk around the trailer and confront whoever it was. But the second the door slammed, the car jerked into reverse, tires screeching on gravel, and sped away into the darkness. All I saw was that it was an old, white sedan, outdated, something that looked uncomfortably close to an old police cruiser with push bars still attached. Weird, too weird. I checked the back of my truck, everything intact. Still uneasy, I climbed back inside, locked every door twice, and let myself drift off for a quick rest. I woke to a thunderous bang, the kind that vibrates through a trailer wall. I shot upright, heart pounding, checking my watch nearly 3 a.m. Before I could fully process it, another bang came harder, closer. I leaned toward the side mirror. Through the faint reflection, through the dim lot lights, I saw a shadow moving along the back of my trailer. Slow, intentional, a cold wave rolled through me. I grabbed the small knife I kept in the center console, eased my cab door open, and stepped out silently. I crouched low, creeping toward the rear tires for a better angle. When I dropped to my knees and looked under the trailer, my blood froze. Someone was standing directly against the back doors. A tall figure, motionless, and just behind him was that same white, beaten-up sedan, headlights off, engine silent. Every instinct screamed at me to run. Instead, I stayed low, backed away as quietly as I could, then shouted, "Hey, get away from my truck." My voice shook, but it worked. The figure jolted, spun, and ran into the car. The engine roared to life, and the vehicle tore out of the lot. I ran to the back doors. Scratches, deep ones. Metal gouged around the lock. Clear attempts at prying it open. He'd been trying to break inside. Little did he know, the trailer was empty. There was nothing to steal. Shaking, breath ragged, I climbed back into my cab and got back on the highway. I didn't stop again, didn't sleep, didn't look in the mirror for too long. Nothing else happened that night. But even now, every long drive I take, I still get that same uneasy feeling, like a car might be hugging my blind spot, and I might never see it until it's too late.